So in this section, we're going to be talking about groups as systems, a lot of the different dynamics of what a system is and how it operates within groups itself. Let's start out by a definition of a small group and talk about size and other factors within the group itself. Most groups do range between 3 to 5 members for small groups. But they say research shows that 5 to 7 tends to be the best size, although really it just really depends on how the size of the group depends on how effective it's going to be and how well they're going to get the work done. So size definitely does matter, and as the group gets larger, there's certain things that can come into it, such as more conflict can occur, more isolation between group members. You can have factions that start to create within the group itself. So there's a lot of different things which occur. But again, you don't want this group too small because then it can create a lot more burden on group members to get the work done. And there's a lot of other things. Conflicts can still occur and other things which can occur as well. So the groups usually have a common goal or purpose when they work together. It's something what they're trying to get done. Interaction among members must be communicated freely and openly for it to be effective and productive. So group members need to be open and share, get involved in the group, provide consensus on different matters within the group. All those factors and more are really important within the group itself. So let's talk about system theory and really what a system is. The best, I guess, comparison I could say would be like a car engine. Because a car engine has all these different parts that operate within the system itself. And when one part goes bad, then the rest of it can go bad and not work as correctly. So it's much like a group, very much interdependent among other group members and very much a higher reliance among group members as well. As Littlejohn says here, it's a set of interconnected parts working together to form a whole in the context of a changing environment. So really good groups are ones that are be able to interact with the environment around them and make the necessary changes that they need to make. For example, we see stores that really thrive, businesses that really thrive and do well, and then we see businesses that don't thrive because maybe they don't change with the environment and the signs of the times. So in your textbook, there's 4 different processes as part of a system. There's input, entropy, throughput, and output. Input really are the resources or information that we put into the group itself. They have what we call the technique of pooling ideas. So when you pool something in a group, you put those resources together. And of course, in a larger group, you're going to have bigger pools of information which you can pick information from. And you're going to find experts within your group itself that really know something about a particular subject. So that can be very helpful. Entropy is something groups definitely want to avoid because that's the deterioration of the group itself. And we know this from the area of science where organisms deteriorate and that sort of thing happens. Well, the same can happen within a group itself. And things like conflict and other communication and other matters can definitely affect entropy. Throughput is actually the process that what the group does. It's maybe working on a project or having a discussion on something. That's all part of throughput. And then output is your final solution. What the group puts out, what they produce, is really what output is. So why join a group? Well, synergy says the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. In other words, a group can do a lot more than a single person can a lot of times. Now, I'm not saying we should, do away with things that maybe one person can do by themselves. But I am saying that a lot of projects that are out there, things that we do, groups can definitely be more effective and can definitely resolve and take care of things a lot better than maybe one person or two person could do that. But there are 2 different types. There's positive and negative synergy. So positive synergy is a really good example where groups are working together productively, communication is open, they resolve conflicts, they've set goals, they work towards those goals, and they accomplish that what they need to. Negative synergy, maybe you have a difficult group member or maybe you're not reaching your goals, or the goals are too outrageous, or things like that. So that can create a lot of negative synergy within the group. So as I said earlier, dealing with change is so important within the groups itself. They're able to really be flexible and kind of fluctuate within the group itself. And the size of the group definitely important. More information and ideas available, very, very important in groups, because where one person may have some information, may not have enough information, where groups may have that. And then the other thing which groups can provide is really a check and balance within the group. Maybe you come up with an idea by yourself, but if you add another person and maybe another person within that group there, then they can provide a check and balance, and they can provide feedback to you on something. So that can, again, be very, very helpful. If you've ever been to a lake, or you've taken a rock and you've kind of thrown it across the water, you'll notice that it skips most of the time. Mine don't. Mine usually sink. But a lot of times when you throw a rock, it'll produce these ripples in the water. Notice that these ripples will have an effect across all the water. So your author, Rothwell, says it's a chain reaction which spreads across the entire system. What we're saying in essence here is that one thing or one effect can have an effect amongst the whole system itself. For example, the General Motors strike which occurred, a smaller part within that larger system made a huge impact to the organization itself. These can be positive or negative. A lot of times we see the negative, unfortunately, too much, but there's a lot of positive things which happen, can be very, very beneficial. So consider that as you work in your group, that both positive and negative can have effect among the whole system and the whole group itself. Let's move on to difficult group members. And we may have all had one group member. I can tell you years ago when I was in school or college at Cal State Long Beach, I was in a group project in my communication class, and I was probably the second to the last person to work on that part, on my part of the group project that we were working on, and we were going to present it from the class. Well, lo and behold, the person ahead of me was taking forever to do their part. They were what we call a slacker. They didn't do what they want to do. They didn't do it timely, and so it created a big burden on not only myself but the rest of the group as well. So I pleaded with the professor to help have mercy on me and try to give me more time, and she told me really to work through it, to try to work with the group and try to resolve the problem with the difficult group member that I had. So maybe some of us are very apprehensive of getting in groups because we may have a difficult group member for that very reason. Maybe we've had a bad experience before where somebody's been a slacker, they haven't done their part, or maybe you have that group member that just disappears and you just don't know what's happened to them. So this can create definitely a division in the group, and eventually can create entropy, which is something the group wants to avoid. A lot of times, these difficult group members will bring in what we call hidden agendas or ulterior motives. It's like if I ask somebody, hey, what are you doing this Saturday? And that person said, oh, nothing, why? Well, why don't you come over and paint my house, help me paint my house with me? That's really a hidden agenda that I'm hiding there. I'm not concealing that. And that is not a good thing, a productive thing to do. It destroys that cohesion or the glue within the group. That cohesion keeps the group together, and the group can definitely start falling apart. And oftentimes these difficult group members present power play. This is especially true with group leadership positions, where group members will kind of fight, and there will be tension and contention among group members. So that can also be demonstrated. So it's no wonder, I mean, with this picture here, every group project in school you've ever had, you have that one person that does 99% of the work. You have that one person that has no idea what's going on the whole time. You have that one person who says he's going to help out, but he really doesn't. And then you have that group member that disappears at the very beginning. It doesn't show up again until the very and then they take credit and they get the same grade you do. And I get it. I've been there, and that can definitely happen. But unfortunately, so these are mindsets which people have. But I can tell you one thing, that this can be managed well, and you can avoid these situations with group members if you do that. And then oftentimes when there is a group project, but you did all the work. So, like I said, I've been in that situation too. I get it, and it can be very challenging. So let's go through this list quickly of the difficult group members. And some of you may say, "Hey, I've had one of those difficult group members before." Maybe you have the silent member that just doesn't speak up at all. They're really silent and they stay isolated. Or they have the very dominating member that is domineering and they really take over the group discussions. Or there's the critic who always challenges and criticizes every idea that's shared within the group. Whiners are just that. They just complain and whine about everything that the group shares. Stage hogs. These people like to have the stage all the time and speak. And it just seems, I know people like that. You can never seem to get your word in, and that sort of thing happens. You have the questioner, just kind of like a little kid, I guess. They question everything within the group. The storytellers that would rather share stories about things in their life rather than discuss things within the group. The know-it-alls are just that. They think they know it all. Snipers are actually a good example of a sniper, like in the military, would be snipers will kind of hide and wait to take a shot at you when you least expect it. So you'll see snipers often at like press conferences or like at meetings, things like that, large meetings, and they'll take information and use it back at you when you least expect it. So snipers are definitely destructive to the group, and you want to try to avoid those. Daydreamers are just that. Their mind is on, Jupiter or somewhere. They just, they're just daydreaming. Maybe person, they're just really indecisive all the time. They're really not quite sure. Overachievers, perfection is it. They've got to have everything perfect. We know that things are never always perfect. The busy bee would be that group member that's always busy and you can't pin them down for a meeting time, and they always have something going on. The socialite is definitely just wanting to be social rather than working on the task at hand. They would rather party all the time. The slacker is a big one. I've seen the slacker many times because the slacker is the one who just doesn't do the work. They just kick back and they just, expect everyone to do everything for them. And then you have the tardy member and the absent member. The tardy member, they're always showing up late for meetings or maybe halfway through. And the absent member, they just don't show. You just don't see them. You see them at the beginning and maybe they're gone. They disappear. So you may think of more, but these are just some of the major ones that I have seen. Some solutions to these difficult members. You definitely want to avoid placating the group member, saying, "Oh, that's okay, we'll work it out." It's kind of placating. Avoid defensiveness and abusive remarks, because once you start doing that, they're going to get really upset, and then conflict escalates, and then it's really hard to find a solution. Rather try to be very assertive with your approach to them and try to mutually try to find common ground. A lot of times might be a better way to do that. Avoid letting them have the soapbox and take over the group. You just definitely want to avoid that. Try to build within support within the group members itself. Maybe you can get someone else to help you work with them. Also, breaking up the group into smaller parts might be a better way. Get the group member to be precise and specific about their criticism. What is it exactly, John, that you don't like within the group? What is bothering you? Suspend a task temporarily and explore what else is going on. And a lot of times, I have this next slide here, which has the picture of the iceberg. Whoop, went too far. You've got to look below the surface problems. You see a little part on top, but there's a lot underneath that's going on with a particular group member. And so avoid jumping to conclusions. They may have something going on in their life that you don't know about, but do try to maybe pull them aside and try to work things out with them. Change. Open and closed systems. Let's talk about these two different types here. And open systems, like I said, they're very open to communication. They will be very open with their environment around them. Closed systems, they have very strict borders within the group. They don't want anybody to interact with their group members at all. They want to have very tight borders in that, and they try to control that as well. No sorts of media influence or anything else that's going to maybe they would say contaminate the group itself. Interdependence is the reliance between group members they have. So whether it be trust or you have a lot of dependency on other group members to get their job done, interdependence is very high within the groups, and it's a very important aspect. Feedback, especially important when you hear back from group members. This is especially true with the group leader, where they're able to hear back, and good group leaders will do that. They'll be able to gather feedback from their group members about how things are going. And realize that boundaries can be physical, psychological, linguistic, and rule-oriented. So physical, I mean just that. You have physical boundaries. Maybe you have a small room that your group meets in. And that is kind of the boundary or border that you have set up with your group. Psychological could just be mental factors boundaries that you set up with the group. Linguistic has to be with the language or lingo that the group uses, and the rules are just that. They're rules or standards that the group members set. And we're going to talk about norms later, but norms are definitely important within the group. To finish up here, systems are dynamic processes with inherent moments of stability and change. Entropy is always feared by groups and always should be tried to be avoided. And good groups will try to maintain a level of stasis where and maybe try to improve, and they'll look back and try to improve upon things year after year. And interdependence must exist in the groups itself for it to be successful. And that is the end of this lecture.